It's an early Christmas present for the U's as a routine win delivers a gift-wrapped 3 points for us to tuck under the tree and stretch our unbeaten run to 11 games. Welcome along, everyone, as we enter that period when no one knows what day of the week it is. We're here to confuse things even more by bringing you a review show and a preview show all in one, having a chat about the Accrington win and then a quick look ahead to Gillingham 2. I've got two Christmas elves joining me. Mr. Walker, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, delightful. The most wonderful
spirit of Christmas.
Very much like the ghost of Christmas past, I think.
Yeah.
But actually, more so on Saturday after the game. The ghost of someone that used to live but didn't really had too much fun, if anything.
An empty shell of a man. I mean, we did give all 12 pubs a pretty good crack, didn't we, on our little pub crawl before the game?
Yeah, but that's just classic us, like just supporting local business.
That's exactly it, yeah. One of which, of course, being the Old Spring, our wonderful sponsors. You can go and get 10% off. We didn't have a world-famous skepasti yesterday because we only had about 25 minutes in there, so not enough time to order any food. But you can get a Matchday Meal Deal, £15, as I'm sure you know by now. A wonderful, wonderful drinking partners and sponsors. Swindle, pleasure to have you here as well, mate. I was just thinking about how many over the years, we're 6 years old now, this pod, maybe 7. How many different sort of Christmas intros do you think we've done over the years? Because I was just writing down and I was like, I must have said this before.
It's quite hard to come up with it, you know. I suppose if we lose, there's coal in the stocking, and if we win, it's gift wrapped, and there's few and far between, really. But yeah, ho ho ho, here we are.
Don't sound too excited, mate. Mate, we've got a win to review. We should all be absolutely buzzing. Walks, let's start with you. Friday night under the lights, 2 goals, 1 either half, clean sheet. All very routine stuff. What more can you ask for?
Not a lot. A partridge in a pear tree, maybe. No, come on now. This is serious.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, probably not loads, to be fair. I think there's something to be said for how routine it was and how almost straightforward the evening felt. And there's something to be said for actually getting to that point and making it seem that way. Because I know that there'll be a lot of, it's only Accrington and you can only beat what's in front of you sort of chat. So I know that the league table as it is sort of has them in that sort of bottom group of teams that we would expect to beat in that sort of manner, like, you know, Newport and one or two others in there as well, like Cheltenham, for example, that we've just sort of rolled over at the Abbey quite comfortably so far this season. But I think it's like over the last, 6, 7, 8 games maybe in the league, Accrington have been fairly consistent and I think I picked up a few decent results and whatnot. I think they were 9th, was it, going into the game as in the form table, and that suggests that they've been competing as a pretty decent outfit at this level. But we were just so comprehensively better, I think, and there were periods in the game where we weren't probably at our best and we didn't show exactly what we needed to do. And we've seen better football from us, but there were parts of the game as well where we just looked a level above, I think. And I think Harris mentioned it in his post-match interview. We scored goals at really good times. Obviously, one just before half time. Literally, I guess, sort of the half time whistle would have been blown if that, I guess it was straight afterwards, right? But if that ball had gone the other side of the post, you go in 0-0 and you're setting up for a second half where maybe they dig in, maybe they make it difficult, maybe we get frustrated, all these sorts of things. But yeah, we just did what we need to do, and not in easy circumstances either. Because I know that Lavery came on in the end, and obviously we end the pitch maybe looking closer to what we feel first choice might look like. But Watts goes off injured. Still playing in a formation and with personnel in that formation, I'm not sure Harris would be massively comfortable with, and I'm not sure it'd be massively. Again, it probably wouldn't be his absolute first choice, but. Yeah, I think, like I mentioned at the top of it, I think there's something to be said for executing it. But I think the fact that, particularly at home and particularly to this point, I think we've seen enough of the season now to be able to comfortably say that we've got a good level in this division. But the fact that on a, not weekly basis, but fortnightly basis, I guess, we play teams at home and we are just head and shoulders above probably 85 or 90% of those, is real testament to how we've been managed and how we've been able to get into this situation. So, yeah, pretty good evening, really, all things considered. Arguably, you could say maybe towards the end of the game, can we push on? Can we make it a bit more comfortable? Can we really put on a bit of a show? But, you're picking there to really see his job done after about an hour. And the rest of it's all kind of a little bit elementary, really. But, yeah, a good evening.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that bit of the game because I've got a little theory that it was actually a bit more intentional than from our side in terms of like saving a few legs for this period. But just to touch on something that you said there, Swindle, it might seem routine on the surface, but that in itself is maybe the biggest positive of the evening. Tom just touched on Accrington's form coming into it. I know their away form wasn't all that, but you spoke about it on the previous show really well, that it just felt like a banana skin. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks as like you look at a tricky little period and think Accrington at home, you've got to get 3 points there. And you know what League Two is like, crazily unpredictable all the time. Not just for us, but for all sorts of teams. I mean, Swindon lost 4-0 to this Accrington side, who are, maybe they're not one of the worst sides in the league, but they're a bottom third side for sure. And it just felt like it was all set up for a disappointing, as you predicted, 1-1, or like that Harrogate game, something like that. And to just kind of walk to a 2-0 win, it's really encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think it's like one of our kind of most comprehensive performances this season, in the fact that we just managed the game well, didn't ever look particularly under pressure, nullified Accrington's threat pretty well, and just managed it so well. It's not something we're used to, certainly in recent times with Cambridge United, seeing a team kind of come out and run the game from the off and do it on our terms. So it's brilliant to see, like Tom's reference, we want to put ourselves in that top bracket of this league, and that's what the top teams do when a lower team who are on indifferent form come to you. You want to go out there, manage the game, clean sheet, as we all know, platforms to build on.
Yeah.
And I think it's a brilliant, it's a brilliant result and really well managed. And I think, every player who featured put in a real shift. And I think Harris has kind of instilled this attitude in the team where, everyone's working for each other. And I think there were questions at the start of the season about commitment from some players and how they were applying themselves, and I think that's kind of been washed out now. And I think it's promising to see not just those that started, but your players coming on, those back from injury or those who haven't managed to feature so much, still putting an absolute shift in and doing a really good job. And I think the mentality has improved massively from past seasons, and a lot of that will be down to the kind of influence of Neil Harris, I think.
Yeah, because I think he said after the game, like, we're getting better, and I think he said, like, my team's always improved throughout the season, and we've still got a way to go. And it's fair, like, we have improved hugely. Like, I think a lot of the things we were talking about, creating chances, for example, maybe Friday night wasn't the best example of it, but we still massively outperformed them on XG and any sort of numbers that you want to look at, and sort of reflected that comfortableness that we've spoken about. With the game itself, wasn't exactly a thriller of a first half. There's a big chance for Apare, which I kind of didn't really remember, which when Bennett swings the ball across, is a bit of a tough one, like where he is angle wise, but he's only like 5-6 yards out, so he'd probably be expecting to do a bit better. Bennett was really the threat throughout the whole game, but then it's Gibbons who opens the scoring. Tom is a much better finish than I remember. It's a brilliant goal, really, very controlled.
Yeah, it's also probably harder than it looked at the time as well. I think he's got quite a lot of time to think about it, which I guess sounds like it should be easier. But I think if you're a right back, probably you just need things to happen rather than having loads of time to think about it. Like if that's Lavery in that situation, it's kind of meat and drink. But with respect, Gibbons isn't Lavery in that sense. So I mean, it's good. I think it's also really good from Kai as well. And that's what I referred to earlier about us just being a cut above some of the teams at this level. It's about having players with the ability of Kai to, but it's kind of made again. We'll go festive. It made mincemeat out of his, out on a defender. These are getting worse. But yeah, it's just good. And then obviously the ball drops. And actually, that's one of the things, because like yourself, Julian, there were parts of the game that I was a little bit hazy on when I was it. But like when you watch the highlights back, one of the things that sort of stands out about the first half is like how often particularly Gibbons was getting into that sort of position. Like he has one at the back post, which the keeper makes a really good save on early on in the game, as a shot which goes just wide as well. I think that was sort of in the start, I think. And then obviously he finds himself sort of running onto a loose ball in the box like just before half time, and That's a good sign of the intent as well. Because if we're talking about things and things that are improving and stuff, I think one of the big frustrations that people have had earlier on in the season is the way that we're setting up. And I guess even at home, like even if the results have been okay, like the intent maybe hasn't always been to go out and win games and take them by the scruff of the neck. But if you're having your right back getting into like in the first half, 2 or 3 very good attacking positions, one of which he ends up scoring from, that's got to be a really good sign of your intent, I think. Right back, I mean, you know what I mean, sort of right centre back. That is, yeah. Probably even more of a sign of the intent that obviously was playing in the sort of centre back position, I guess. But I think like you know Bennett made things difficult all afternoon as well, evening rather. And yeah, I think just a really well taken goal, to be fair. And I think as much as there's bits in there which show the quality that we've got, I think it's just the timing of it more than anything. To mention it earlier on, but there is another world where you don't get that goal before halftime. The second half becomes a real slog, and you know we've all long enough in the tooth to have seen those games where you do dominate and you do create a few decent opportunities and you don't take them, and then it becomes harder. And the longer that game goes on 0-0, sort of it almost feels like the more likely you are to lose it rather than us pile on and try and find a winner. So yeah, really good timing for it, and just exactly what the doctor ordered, I think.
Yeah, I think the word that we've spoken about on pods for like the last couple of years, various different contexts, is conviction. And it just feels like we are playing with a lot more conviction in general now. That moment being a really good one, just putting teams to the sword. Well, to be fair, I was going to say putting teams to the sword, but I guess that was the narrative from last week, that we didn't quite do that against Chesterfield. And last night just showed the ability to go and just make the game safe, and then 2-0 up with half hour to go, and you're feeling absolutely brilliant about it. In the first half, and maybe the only other thing that we need to touch on is what's going off injured. It was his 50th league appearance for United as well, as courtesy of Doug Shulman. Does it make centre-back depth a bit of a worry for you, Swindle? But also, the second part to that question is I thought Rossi played pretty well off the bench, to be honest. It's a tricky situation to come into.
Yeah, massively. It was one of the things I was referencing earlier about players who came in, off the bench. I think Rossi really did play well, because it's a difficult time to come on in a difficult position. He's not had much football this year. We've seen him, being wheeled out by the club in a kind of community sense more than we've seen him on the pitch. And he's obviously great at that and good in the dressing room. But it's great to see him come on and do the job. I think he played really well. I think Watts has been really good for us and really important for us this season, and he will be a miss. Especially in this busy period. It's unfortunate, and injuries do seem to happen in these periods, but it's now a test of kind of our squad's resolve and Rossi, I suppose, as well, because he's probably now going to feature. It'll be interesting to see if Gibbons, Job and Rossi kind of started together. Be interesting to see how that dynamic goes. I think we have seen from Rossi in the past some kind of indecision and a couple of mistakes, that he's made. So it'll be quite an important time for him, and certainly in a Cambridge United shirt, that if he can kind of take this opportunity, it could really, make a difference for him. And yeah, we do need a full squad and everybody to contribute, and this is his time. So I think, yeah, he will have to come in and feature. I don't think we'll kind of sacrifice formation too much to not play him. So yeah, I think he will come in and hopefully can do a job.
Yeah, it's like one of them things. You're right. I feel like there's been a few times this season where this sort of situation's occurred, and we've seen players kind of take their chance really well, which is probably like the biggest positive you can say. George Hoddle being a brilliant example of that. Slightly further forward, I mean, you could even argue like McConnell as well, the way when he came in and did really well. And whenever we've had these little moments, the sort of deputies always stepped up pretty well. Bradshaw maybe not quite got the chance in the league, but you see him in the cups, and as a deputy, always like stepping up really well. So it's a big chance for Rossi, because 2 tricky away games, which obviously we'll talk about in a bit, coming up, and hopefully for Watts. I mean, he's kind of turned the narrative around, as we've spoken about quite a bit this season and kind of in general in his time here, and he's been playing like superbly, like one of the kind of undroppable, really, to be honest. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. So he was sort of limping around at the end of the game. So I guess, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I guess good that he's not in a serious enough state to have to like leave the ground, go to hospital. I don't know, go and get some scans straight away. I'm not entirely sure how it would work, but he's walking in his own 2 feet. Maybe it's just a couple of weeks, but obviously a bad couple of weeks to lose him for. So that's the slight negative of the night. Second half, let's talk about Sully Kaikai a little bit more, Tom, because he had a big part to play in the first goal. Then he made it 2 on 60 minutes. Brilliant from Mayer in the build-up. Superb. I mean, his levels are just so high until the moment that me and you either mention it, Tom. But his levels in general are really high. We spoke about it last week, but how encouraging is it to see Kai finding the sort of form he's in now? Because he's just such a difference maker when he's playing like this, isn't he?
Yeah, 2 pretty different goals, I'd say, in the last couple of games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's one of, it's mad to think that like for the last like week, or not week or 2, but sort of preceding that, he wasn't even really getting that many minutes. It's quite mad to think. But yeah, just a real difference maker, really versatile as well. Like we kind of think of him typically as like a sort of winger, really out wide, tricky to play against sort of player, and there he is popping up in the 6-yard box with a header. So really good. He's got that to his game as well, and I think there was a chance as well that maybe he could have done better on. So he'll be a little bit, disappointed with that one, I suppose. But then, just to find himself in the right space at the right time, and I think difference maker is kind of the word. Really, I think he's might be harsh, really, but I think if you look at like Adam Mayer, for example, you feel you've got a player there who's just going to consistently for 90 minutes just be on it and sort of delivering a performance of like a 8 out of 10 level. But with Kai, it feels like at times maybe more just drifting in and out of games a little bit, and you're looking for the moments really, and obviously plays a big part in the first goal and then obviously scores a second, so he's very much delivered on that. And I think probably no better way to sum it up really than the difference maker making the difference. It's really good to see.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then there's this period after we score where we kind of then, I mean, I guess we took our foot off the gas a little bit because, well, there's 2 ways of looking at it, I guess, Swindle, and maybe we'll never know what the right answer is. I was kind of looking at it as, well, first of all, I mean, look at the possession stats in the second half. I can't break it down on FOTMOP any more accurately than this because I'd like it after 60 minutes just to see, but they outdid us on possession 60-40 basically, 7 shots to 3, like way more passes, 165 passes to 107. So there was this period where it kind of felt like they were dominating the game in a way, but they were just providing no threat. And the way I'm looking at it is, I think that was more about us stepping off it, going, you're 2-0 up here, fully confident that we're not going to concede 2 goals. I guess it's like we've got the ability to soak up the pressure, got the players on the pitch, 5 at the back to be able to do it. Save your legs, like don't risk anything. There is a slight problem with that theory because he did bring Shane Lavery on, so like don't risk anything and then bring on like your star striker who's like constantly injury prone when you're comfortably 2-0 up. I had a few qualms about that, and every time he was sprinting, we were all going, "Stop, Shane, easy, easy, Shane." But what do you think? Because do you think it was more Accrington stepped their level up, or we kind of tactically tried to slow it down a little bit to make sure we didn't get any other injuries ahead of this period?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some. I definitely think that was kind of how it went. I think we managed the game very well, and I think we'd worked out by that point that Accrington were kind of all bark and no bite. I think we knew that we could nullify them enough and let them have the ball. The possession is one thing, but they just they weren't really doing much with it, and I think we managed the game well. And actually, I don't think it's a bad time to bring someone like Lavery back into it because it's not like the game was a million miles an hour and frantic. You're almost easing him back in, and I think
there's almost no pressure on him, right? It's almost just exactly. Like give him the minutes. Yeah, fair. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
I think that was really a good choice, and I think it was just clever. I think Neil Harris has now given this team the confidence. You don't need to constantly be trying to find a way by hook or by crook and leave yourself open. We've managed that game, played as a unit, and just done it very cleverly. And I think it was our most complete 90 minutes of the season. I think on Friday, just from a point of view, we haven't really seen a performance where we've consistently kind of kept it up. Whilst it didn't set the world alight, I think it was just a very comprehensive performance, and I think a lot of credit is due to everyone involved, really, because it was, as we've said earlier in this podcast, routine, and we don't see many routine wins of late with Cambridge United. So very good to see that they just put it to bed and come away with a clean sheet.
Yeah, and it was just like the routineness, as we said earlier, is probably the biggest thing about it. And I think saying most complete home performance is fair. I mean, what would go close? Maybe Newport, but Newport had better chances. than Accrington did. I think we kind of left them in the game. They were in the game a bit more than Accrington. Maybe like, yeah, I think it probably is, isn't it? There's nothing. There's nothing I can think of that has that full 90-minute factor to it, even despite like your centre back goes off injured. You're sort of dealing with a few injury problems anyway. At centre mid, you're really lacking options. Tom, let's have a quick chat about George Hoddle, because we snuck into the Dublin suite after the game, or whatever it's called now. Is it still called the Dublin suite? I don't know. You know what I mean. After the game, and George Hoddle was being given his man of the match champagne. It just sort of struck me like, I mean, how good has he been since coming into the side? Because we spoke about Watts earlier and like Rossi having this chance. It's quite a big step up to be able to suddenly have to go and play back to back League One games. And he's found such a high level so quickly. Such an encouraging thing, isn't it, to see an academy product play like this at this level? Did I say League I think I said League One there. I think I meant League Two. Yeah, living in dreamland.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's Hoddle specifically, and you mentioned it's good seeing an academy graduate coming on and doing good things. But like, to Harris's credit, there have been like 3 or 4 examples of that. I guess you'd generously count Liam Bennett in that. I know he didn't sort of develop from with the club from when he was like sort of really, really young. I know he came in slightly later on, but I think we can just about probably file him under academy grad. At least for the purposes of this. Then there's Joe, then there's McConnell, who's obviously played as well. We've seen George Monday at times I appreciate it's been in the trophy, but he's still been involved. But yeah, Hoddle's the one who's really come on this season. Joe obviously known about for a little while. McConnell maybe not quite been as involved as Hoddle has. But yeah, Hoddle's just looked like a touch of class, really. And one of the things, I guess one of the themes of a lot of the discussions we're having at the start and sort of middle bit of the season so far has been, I feel like on paper you've got really good options in centre mid, whether it's Pelly Ruddock, whether it's Shane McLaughlin, whether it's Don Ball, Corey Smith, but we've never quite found the balance to make it really tick in there and really make it all work. And for all of the experience and sort of appearances that you've got in the sort of 4, what you would suggest are like the first choice centre mids and the sort of seniors in there, and you think about the levels that they've played at between them and that sort of stuff, it's quite refreshing that it's actually Hoddle who's come in and really probably made a bit of a difference there. Obviously there's other factors as well. I think Pelly Ruddock's looked better in the last few weeks and more like the player expects. Obviously Smith stepped in and done a good job while Ball's been out injured, but yeah, you're right, like Hoddle's performances have just been really good. And I always think like one of the biggest compliments you can give a young player like that when they're coming through and making their first few appearances, one of the biggest compliments is that you just wouldn't know, and you just wouldn't be aware that this isn't a guy who's made 50, 100, 150 appearances or whatever already, because he just looks comfortable, just looks assured, just does the game, the basic bits of the game really well. He's always there sort of mopping things up, ticking the ball over, and like a really, really well-deserved man of the match performance, I think. And arguably there have been games where he might have been in with a shout of winning that and maybe hasn't, because typically it goes to a goal scorer. But yeah, for today or for Friday, I think really, really well deserved. And I do think it's really positive that he's playing well. I think it's also good that you've got like McLaughlin, for example, who's coming back into the side, because you don't want to be totally reliant on someone of that, I guess, lack of experience. But you want them always more to be an option and for them to come in, and when they do play well and they do play as well as Hoddle has, almost for it to be a bonus, I think. And yeah, it's now something that is just become the norm, really. Another one off the conveyor belt, I suppose, who's got probably quite a bright future. But for now, yeah, good to see that he's able to contribute.
It's like La Masia, isn't it, at the Abbey? Just constant production line.
a bit like that. Not exactly the same, but similar.
Swindle, if you could somehow come up with a pun for La Masia in the next, something to do with Cambridge in the next couple of minutes, that'd be really good. Okay, cool. While you do that, let me ask Tom this question. Tom, 11th clean sheet of the season, 11 unbeaten, 1 loss in 15 in all competitions at home, 6 points off top, 1 off the playoffs. We did go up to 5th, but I think everyone around us won, so dropped to 8th, but still. Second best home record in the league. I mean, the numbers are saying, let's not review the first half of the season, but the numbers are saying that we've had a brilliant start to the season, or first half. How do you think we're shaping up heading into this period, though? Because it's basically a game every 3 days from Boxing Day onwards. According to someone's put together a little table with the fixture, every team's fixtures, and like the average position of the teams they're playing. If that makes sense. And we're fifth, so like fifth hardest fixtures in this period. How do you think we're shaping up heading into that? Because there are a couple of injury problems, few coming back, but few kind of on the edge, both with performance and injuries and selection and personnel. How are you feeling about it all?
I think it's a really tricky one to navigate. And you'd like to think that at some point Watts will be fit for it. I think he's been really crucial to us, being so solid and so difficult to beat. Really, like particularly at home. Like I've sort of maintained really throughout the season that there's a lot more to come from us, and particularly following November, which I think we all said was like a really good month and a really productive month in terms of the points we've got. December is always more of a grind for how many games you play, but also for us, the level of the teams that we're playing. Chesterfield twice, who were pre-season title favourites, or one of them. MK Dons, who were literally the pre-season title favourites, and Gillingham, which is always a tough place to go. Question marks and then obviously you start the new year with Walsall, who I think are currently sat at the top of the league. So, it's pretty tricky. But what I would say is that, just repeat the same thing I've said for the last couple of weeks, really. If you come through December and you're in all right shape and you're still within touching distance of the top of the table, which I think we pretty much are at the moment, because how quickly League Two changes, 6 points is pretty minimal, really, particularly at this stage of the season, then you are in a really good spot to motor forward and to really make something of the year. And I think we've gone under the radar a little bit, really. Like there's not been like loads to talk about us, and probably a lot of that will be because our games tend to be quite quiet in goal scoring terms. Like we don't really concede many, we don't really score that many, but we're just ticking along. And I think if we can get through until it's that Grimsby game, I think is on the 4th, I think. And then you have the cup game, and then there's like a 2-week gap until your next league fixture. So if you can basically get through to Grimsby and you're in a reasonable position, like similar to where we are now, obviously we're on a pretty decent unbeaten run at the moment. I think of the fixtures we've got coming up, you'd probably expect one of those might be a loss. But if you're still in touch and distance of the top of the table, and particularly the top 3, I think then with a decent January under your belt, you're in a really good position to motor on and go and really challenge for that sort of top 3 spot. And I think the thing that I've sort of become more more set on really in the last few weeks, particularly seeing how we played and some of the results we picked up, is that any chat of us being a team that should be challenging for the playoffs should just end. Like we should be a much better team than that. Like we should be a team that is looking at the top 3 and thinking that's our aim, that's the goal, automatic promotion. And I think the next 2 or 3 weeks might not be totally defining. So obviously, the long season, there's a lot of twists and a lot of turns, but it will tell us a lot about our credentials for that. And if we come through Christmas okay, then I think you'd be hard pressed to think that with 1 or 2 of the right additions, there's a team in there that has the platform to go on and achieve something. So yeah, we'll have to see, but definitely our hardest bit of the season to come up. I suppose the positive of that is that once you're through this, there's probably not going to be too many more periods there that look as difficult as this. But yeah, definitely one where we can really make some ground, I think.
Yeah, and just keep the momentum up. It's one of those situations, maybe you touched on the unbeaten run there. Sometimes you can get fixated with not losing a little bit. Maybe as fans, it's almost, obviously, you'd rather beat Gillingham and lose to Chesterfield than draw them both, if that makes sense, even though it would ruin the unbeaten run. I just wanted to also mention that I'm not sure if we brought this up on a pod, but I know we chatted about it in various group chats a couple of weeks ago, listening to the excellent Not the Top 20. And I thought they've not really ever spoken about us that much because, as you said, Tom, we've kind of gone under the radar. Our games haven't been particularly interesting for like a neutral to discuss. But I think it was after the Crew game, they had a quick chat about us. And I thought George Ellick actually summed it up pretty well from an outsider kind of looking into it. He was like, a Neil Harris team that's one of the best home sides in the division and that doesn't concede any goals, top 7. Like when you look at it like that, and I know that's an incredibly simplified way to look at it, and there's a lot of challenges, that things like injuries and various contextual things between games, but I think if you can keep those 2 things up, not conceding goals and being brilliant at home or like nearly flawless, I'm not sure you've got to be finishing top 7. Something's got to be going really wrong somewhere else to not. So I think it's all like setting up pretty promisingly. How about you, Swindle? What's your take on that?
I think it's really important that we won against Accrington, like because you both mentioned it there. Like the unbeaten run is a great thing, but like keeping it going with draws might kind of like stifle a bit of momentum. So I think winning the games that are there for the taking is, almost more important. Like Tom said about like, well, maybe you said, beating Gillingham, lose Chesterfield. I think, the unbeaten run is one thing, but you're
Yeah,
getting those wins under our belt. We've struggled in the past few seasons with not being able to turn 1 points into three, and we're in a different league now, but we're doing that, and it's like that's almost more important than kind of stringing together an unbeaten run. We spoke at the start of the season and points throughout this one. This league is so open. You need two good runs, and then you can really be really right up there. We've done one. I'm not saying we need to go out and lose a game, but we are in one of those runs now, and it's so important that we're winning the games that are there. Because I think you draw and you look at a playoff team, but as Tom says, we're just outside the playoffs now. But if we can kind of push on, I think we should be, playoffs minimum.
yeah, yeah. I think that's true, and it's pretty good to set those standards. I think a little bit because I think we're a bit unsure pre-season, but I think it's better now. And I'm sure Harris, maybe he's not saying it out loud at any point, but I'm sure in his head he's like, he can't be that impressed with what he's seen around him in terms of other teams, and must be thinking, well, we've got to be a playoff team. Anyway, well, that challenge starts on Boxing Day. We promised you a preview, and here it is.
Right then, news fans, I'm joined by Tom from the ME7 podcast. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
So, interesting season so far for Gillingham. Currently sat in 12th place in the table, 7 wins, 9 draws, 5 losses. How has the season been so far as a whole?
Very similar to previous seasons. We started out really well, as we have done for the last 3 years. October hit and it all went to pieces for various reasons. So, the 12th place you see us in now is a true reflection of a really good start, but a really poor last couple of months. 1 win in 13 in the league. It's following a very similar, as I said, pattern to previous seasons where we have started off very well and then tailed off towards the middle of the season.
Yeah, it looks like it's been tough. Quite a lot of draws in there as well. Looking back to Saturday's game, a 2-1 loss at home to Salford. Started out well going in the lead. Sorry, no, it didn't. I've got the wrong fixture.
Away at Fleetwood, we were yesterday.
Away at Fleetwood, yeah.
Yeah.
How was it? Obviously, you took the lead in that game, but didn't go to plan.
We are incapable of, whether it's the first half or second half, we can't play the same tempo all game. We have issues maintaining that same tempo, and we have generally been a good second half team in recent months under Gareth Ainsworth. We've started slow, but then had the momentum to get back into the game. Recently, we've kind of flipped the switch a little bit, and we started off really well. We dominated the first half yesterday, and in the second half, we kind of just fell apart. Didn't create anything. Fleetwood's up their game, and we didn't match that, and ultimately we cannot seem to maintain that same speed and all of that sort of stuff going through 90 minutes. So frustrating, because the game was winnable yesterday, unfortunately.
Yeah, frustrating to see. Late goal to concede as well. One of those that's a tough one to take. If we look back kind of throughout the season, has there been kind of glimmers of hope that things might pick up in recent weeks, or is it kind of a bit of a downward trajectory at the moment?
It feels very downward right now. We haven't, under previous managers, Mr. Bonner included, we have started very slow and then not had the means to get back into the game. And under Ainsworth, that has changed somewhat. We have got more spirit. We have got more kind of, more heart, I think. But in recent weeks, it has kind of felt a little bit like we've been scrapping for a draw, when actually, realistically, we have got up in games and we haven't been able to see it through, like yesterday, for example. This whole thing of not being able to sort of play, 90 minutes on the upward trajectory kind of has been hitting us hard. And whether it's a first half or second half showing, we haven't just been able to see it over the line. And we were previously very good at going goal up, and then if we needed to, being able to sort of dig in and grind out a 1-0 win, grind out a result. The whole 1 Gillingham thing has been quite a common phrase used about us. But like yesterday, we just didn't have the sort of capacity to stay in the game, and didn't create enough to warrant, even getting a draw out of it, frankly.
Yeah, shame to see. What do you think the expectations were at the start of the season, and what do you think they are now?
So Gareth came in and said basically we've got a 2 year plan. We want to get out of this league, but we're not going to rush ourselves. We've got a lot of players still to get through, a big squad, the bulk of which are going to be out of contract in the summer anyways. We've got a lot of players to move on. But then when you start a season like we do, you can't help but just think, oh, maybe this year is going to be our year. We were, top in the sort of first couple of months of the season. But realistically now, we just don't seem like we are playoff contenders. And obviously, the more games that we don't win, the further off the pace we slip. I still maintain that this summer is going to be a massive summer for us. We've got a lot of players, as I said, that aren't cutting it, are out of contracts and should be moved on. So it might be a thing of, right, let's get through the season relatively unscathed with some sort of momentum going forward into next season. Obviously, we had a massive unbeaten run over the course of last season into this, 21 games unbeaten. And I think we raised our expectations internally of, oh, we could do this. And then kind of the same patterns emerged and we've gone backwards and we've sort of gone back into old habits. So 2 year plan it is. Whether that means that next season is going to be better, I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, interesting to hear that 2 year plan could go either way, but fingers crossed for you. It goes well. Let's look at personnel then. Who are a couple of players that Cambridge United fans should look out for who are going to play for Gillingham?
A month ago, I would have said loads. Now, no. I think Bradley Dack has got to be one that obviously stands out, as I'm sure most of you are aware. He comes with a pedigree, and we're starting to see more of what he can bring. He missed a lot due to injury last season, and we gave him another year in the hope that he would kick on, and he has done. He's got the most genuine quality in that squad by a country mile on his day. We've got Sam Gale at the back, who is probably our most promising outlet in terms of our academy sort of starlet, and who will go on to better things. I'm guessing really. I mean, we've got Johnny Smith, who has come down from Wigan to play for us on a loan deal, but hasn't been fit, and on his day could be a game changer. But realistically, it's hard to pinpoint anyone who's kind of standing out right now. I mean, we've got strikers, we've got the likes of Seb Palmer Holden, who has got potential to be a good player for us, but hasn't really sort of seen that on a regular basis. So in current form, I think Dak is the one that stands out for me as potential game changer for us.
Yeah, one that Cambridge United fans definitely will have heard of, and a danger man on his day. What can we expect, style of football wise, from Gillingham?
Oh, it's only a 10-minute part of the show, so we lack pace massively. We lack cutting edge. We play a 3-5-2 with wing backs, and if the same ones play, we've got Romeo Hutton and Aaron Rowe, who are dangerous going forwards, but in terms of that, we play a one up front at the moment with trying to get players like Dak in and around the lone striker. I think we need to play with two strikers. We need to play a big man off of a littler man and, ruffle some feathers. But with one up front, we just don't do that. And especially at home against a team like yourselves in decent form, we should be taking the game to you. We are very much long ball, long throws, long balls from back to front. But it does depend on the first 11 that he plays, really, because we may be able to mix things up. We've got some players coming back from injury. Hopefully that would change the style of play that we do. But recently we have seen a lot of kind of scruffy long ball stuff, which I'm not against, only if it comes off.
Yeah, sure. No, we've experienced a fair bit of that ourselves in recent years. So looking towards the game on Boxing Day, then, how do you think it's going to go, and what do you think the score will be?
Oh, it's we haven't won at home in 3 months. Not to sort of dangle the carrot in front of you, but I would love to see us win, of course, by any means. A 1-0 win off of someone's backside, I'm happy with that. You're in good form. You're a decent side under Neil Harris. I want to see him do well for you, but obviously Saturday aside, I think it'll be a draw. I can't look past the draw right now. I don't think we've got enough to win, but hopefully, we haven't got enough to cave like we did yesterday as well. So I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
Lovely. Listen, Tom, it's been brilliant. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Swindle. to look again behind the curtain, we haven't actually heard that preview yet, so we don't have a lot to go off right this second. You're chatting to them in about 20 minutes. But I can tell you that Gillingham's form is something that had kind of surprised me, and I think we touched on this last week. They started really well, a lot of very classic sort of Ainsworthy stuff, which I guess is very similar to sort of what you'd expect a Harris team to be. But they've actually only won once since the 27th of September, and that was away at Bristol Rovers. So, it's one of those where you think, yeah, it is a tricky game, no question. Do you take a point here, or should we be after more, Swindle?
Well, they love a draw. We spoke to LJ the other day about teams in League Two and who've drawn the most games, and Gillingham have joined that group of people on 9 games drawn this season. And I think they're going to be one of those teams that are quite hard to break down. I think it could be quite an attritional game, probably. They'll probably take a point, and if we're being honest, want to keep that run going. For all that I said, the wins are important. I imagine there wouldn't be too many people disappointed coming away with a draw there, because it's not going to be an easy place to go, and at home they tend to be okay. So yeah, I think there's not they've not lost at home for months. In fact, I can't even see the last time they lost at home. I think, at the end of October. So, yeah, it's a tough place to go. And I would say that, it's going to be one of those that I'd imagine, poor game, come away with the point.
Yeah. I mean, probably at this point. It's worth saying, though, that the last couple of games, they were 2-0 up at home to Barrow and then ended up drawing 2-2. And then they were 1-0 up at Fleetwood and ended up losing 2-1. I've actually there's a message here from in a Jules fan who I'm in the Not the Top 20 League 2 group with, and he was saying, I'll read it out to you, pretty much exactly what happened last week. First half, while not brilliant, comfortably the better side. Fleetwood offered very little, and we were hardly a constant threat, but we were still maintaining pressure. Second half, I saw a team frozen with fear. With the exception of a 5-minute or so spell, we were camped in our box, unable to string 2 passes together and put any pressure on. The difference between this week and last was that was more a case of Barron not looking a gift horse in the mouth. Today, Fleetwood was strong enough to smell our fear and really dominate. For all I said about that first half, there's absolutely no doubt Fleetwood deserved to win today. Blah, blah, blah. It's absolutely vital that we bounce back from this. Once is an aberration, twice is a sign of something going seriously wrong. Mentally, if we do this or similar again in the next game or two, I really fear that we might be in for a tough slide. So it feels like the mood there is maybe a little bit more towards, is probably a bit more negative than we might be expecting. And I mean that... Tom, is it important to kind of approach this without any fear? Because we've all said it's a tough place to go. Ainsworth sides are always tough to beat. We know that from years of going to Wickham. But it sounds like, from that message at least, there is something to be got out here.
Yeah, I think so. And it's something that Caspel said on pods for weeks and weeks and weeks now. But there isn't really a fixture in League Two, particularly having gone to MK Dons and got a pretty comfortable-ish sort of point. There's not really any fix you should look at and be like really, really anything other than we should be trying to win the game. And particularly if you look at the results Gillingham have had and obviously how it sounds like it's been on the ground, I guess. It's a game that you'd look at and you'd like to think, let's keep things going. I suppose the difficulties for us are availability of players, particularly at centre-back. It's presumably going to be Rossi and Job in there, unless Watts has made miraculous recovery. If you're going to win, one of the fixtures around this period, you'd probably look at Gillingham at the moment and think that they're the ones. I think, Chesterfield really tough, Walsall top of the league, etc., etc. So, yeah, why not? Let's do it. But there'll be a lot riding on the game, I guess. Harris and Bonner as well, going back to former clubs and all of that. So, I guess, as much as Gillingham away can be interesting, that adds a bit of interest into it. 3 points has set us up really well going into the toughest, probably 2 games back-to-back that we'll have all season. So, let's see, but why not?
What would you do going forward with our lineup? I mean, would you keep it as it was, 5 at the back with Mayer left wing back, Brophy, Apare, Kai, or is there anyone else you think you might want to chuck in there?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. And I keep going back to this thing that we've obviously heard quite often, that Harris doesn't really like 3 at the back too much, or it's certainly not his preferred approach. So I just feel like at some point he'll probably revert back to type and it'll look a bit more how we expect it to, with 4 at the back and then probably 2-3-1 in front of that, I guess. But yeah, I just think like the way that we've been able to restrict teams in this formation means that, particularly in away games, it does just kind of make sense to stick with it a little bit. And I suppose Gibbons plays a sort of right centre back pretty well, and Rossi came in and did a good job. So I suppose the question is like, who would you drop out of that? I suppose the obvious answer is maybe Liam Bennett, and then all sort of shift over a little bit. But I think for me, I'd just try and keep things as similar as possible. I know it's like a really almost a bit of a cop out, but when things are going well, like you don't want to change too much. You don't, certainly not big kind of structural things like the actual formation of the team. So I'll probably stick with it as far as possible as as you can. I suppose then the other question marks: what do you do up front? Does Lavery come in and make a start from the beginning? Centre mid as well. Like I know we've just sort of raved a little bit around how well Hoddle's been playing, but do you bring somebody more senior into that? Obviously McLaughlin's coming back, so again he'd probably be the one that you'd look at. But yeah, I think as much as possible, just try and keep it similar, keep it ticking over, use the momentum. I think I know it's a real intangible, but you feel like that should be important around this time of the year, and it's one of the things that does carry you through a little bit. As much as difficult runs can become a real slump, good runs like winning breeds confidence, and good performances breed good performances to some extent, I hope. So yeah, I'm not saying I'd keep it totally unchanged. Obviously, there will be 1 or 2 forced changes, but yeah, try not to change too much. I think would probably be my approach.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. To be fair, I think as close to even just the same side as Accrington as possible. Maybe the changes come in the few games after that, when they really pile up the fixtures. Let's get prediction from you both to wrap up. Swindle.
Yeah, I've said I think it's going to be tough. I think Tom makes good points about us being a team that should be confident against most teams in this league. I just think Gillingham, we've seen it. They are tough to break down at home, regardless of whether we might well score, but I think they might as well. We've been good defensively, but I think Watts will be a miss. So I'm gonna go optimistic. I'll go 2-1 Cambridge, but it'll be a tough one.
Yeah, Tom.
I reckon a nice Boxing Day stalemate. I reckon. Yeah, I could just see this one being a one to forget. I reckon. I hate to say it, but I think it might be a little 0-0.
Yeah, I've got the same prediction. I hope the weather's not bad for all the United fans making that trip down on an open terrace. Nice 0-0 at Harris versus Ainsworth, masterclass at play. Well, let's call it that for today. Quick note: half time in the Accrington game, Tom. The 13-14 Legends promotion team were inducted into the Hall of Fame. We had a quick chat with our boy Harrison Dunk, didn't we, after the game? I think you said a quick hello to Kwesi as well. Great to see them inducted into the Hall of Fame, wasn't it? What a team. I love that team so much. See them back at the Abbey was brilliant.
Yeah, it was enough to keep us out the NRE bar as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That says it all.
And it takes a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, particularly particularly having tested out pretty much all the establishments in Cambridge before it. to keep us away from that, yeah, you got to be a pretty special team. But yeah, good to see him back. And like I say, we were able to sneak into the Dublin suite. Was totally starstruck. Me and Kwesi apart for the first time. I actually did a pod with him.
He didn't remember.
Yeah. Look back on the 13-14. He was like, "Oh yeah, do you remember doing that?" He's like, "No, not yeah." No, he said yes, but everything.
His eyes said no.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure Harrison that was great. Was delighted to be accosted by me and you.
Yeah.
14 beers in. So what are you doing at the moment? No. But no, yeah, really good that they're there. Really good that they were inducted in, and yeah, I guess the chat would be how would they all compare up to the sort of modern day. Well, maybe that's a conversation for May. Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think always good to see him, and I suppose the old cliche you got to do is I'm sure one or two of them could still do a job.
I'd take Kwesi.
Injury crisis up front. Come on now, January.
Come on. We're talking about it for about 10 years. Yeah, brilliant to see them there, and well done to them all, deservedly getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let me give you a quick schedule reminder for the pods coming up, because it's a pretty hectic time of year. This is the plan. You've got this pod, you've got a Christmas quiz which we won't spoil right now, which was, as ever, brilliant tradition. I think 4th year now we've done it. The 4th year, I think, yeah. Which I won't spoil, but that'll be out before Christmas as well. Then you're going to get a review of the Gillingham game and a preview of the Chesterfield game on the 28th. 2 days later, a review of the Chesterfield game and a preview of the Walsall game. And then for coconut tier members, you're going to get a first half of the season review at some point just before New Year's, where we'll look back on what's happened so far and doing a bit of an assessment on players, transfers, games, where we're at, how we're looking ahead of 2026. Obviously, £5 a month to be a coconut tier member. You know where to go, undertheabbeystand.com. Why don't you gift it to someone for Christmas? You can get a gift card on there. What a brilliant Christmas present that would be. Someone can get extra pod content, multiple weekly written articles, out on the website. You can also get which is, I think, is well worth a plug. Jordan did a fantastic interview with Shaggy, which is superb. You get an extra half an hour if you're a coconut tier member. There's also a Mark Green interview I did, one of the co-owners, a week before that, where you get basically the full thing as a coconut tier member. There's only a short preview out for non-coconut tier people at the moment. But that's all the plugs done. Go and get someone coconut tier membership for Christmas and have a wonderful Christmas from all of us under the Abbey Stand.